Hi. You know, there are a lot of times where in my many decades of life, I consider myself to know quite a number of things because of the experiences I've lived through and because of the numerous things that I've studied. And sometimes I'm very surprised at what I know and what I don't know. So, I'd like to tell you a little story about something that brought me to this realization. And it all started when I was playing tennis with my daughter, somewhere around a month ago. I went to visit her at UC Davis, and we decided to play tennis at the end of the day. And so it was around 4 o'clock. And at that time, the sun was going to go down by about 5 o'clock. So we were out there. There were other Davis students playing as well next to us and around, and everyone was very cooperative. Balls would fly around, going different places, and each person would help the other person with the errant ball that would go into the next court. And so I went over to get a one of the tennis balls in the next court, and I sort of kicked it with my tennis racket, and it was rolling along the court, and I was staring at it because I noticed the long shadow that it cast. Now, what I'm going to show you here, this is obviously not a tennis ball, but I didn't have any tennis balls in my house, so I just thought I would pull out something that is like a makeshift for a tennis ball. But you can see here, there's a little shadow right over here. There's shadow is there. Well, the tennis ball was casting a really long shadow because the angle of the sun as it was going down, it cast this long shadow. So I was watching this tennis ball, and my daughter was standing there watching me and going and thinking. She said, "What are you doing?" Because it was a long pause and we weren't playing tennis, and I was just staring at this tennis ball that was very slowly rolling along the court. I was just looking at how long the shadow was. And so I said, "Oh, I was just looking at the shadow of the tennis ball." And somehow she brought up the subject of the Apollo moonwalk. And so she said, I saw something recently. And she was quite convinced that the Apollo moonwalk was actually a hoax. Now, 50 years ago is when this event occurred. And it was in 1969, which was the first moonwalk, I believe. And I was in high school at the time. So I remember watching the television broadcast. It was a very, very, very big deal. I totally believed it happened. But here's my daughter 50 years later saying that she thought it was a hoax, that no one actually landed on the moon and that it had been totally staged. Well, I was kind of taken back by that. And I was firmly convinced, because I'd seen it on TV, that it had actually occurred. I mean, come on. And she was talking about this movie that she saw that dealt with this, uncovered the hoax and the myth of it. And it also brought up this subject about a shadow. And I remember also there was this, some controversy, but they were talking about the flag and the shadow that the flag cast on the surface, and how there wasn't a shadow. But besides that, not only was the shadow wrong, but that you could see it waving in the wind. And they said, well, there's no wind on the moon. So I said, well, I don't know. I think when it was put up, it was, they shook it, or perhaps it's wrinkled. Who knows? I have no explanation for the reason why the flag, this is a official NASA photo, why the flag is rippling. And when I looked there also, knowing that the shadows of everything like the astronaut, you can see that it's going that direction, that way. And you can see that the lunar module has one going that direction. I don't necessarily see one that is there for the flag. I don't know about you. But anyway, we were having this conversation, and then she switched the subject slightly and she said, well, why haven't they gone back to the moon? And I have to, I'm supposed to know this stuff. And I was saying, well, I thought, well, didn't they go again? No. Oh, okay. Well, I guess they got enough of the moon rocks the first time. That's what I said. And, but later on, I mean, how ridiculous is that? There were 17 Apollo missions, and there were 12 people, 12 astronauts who landed on the moon, walked on the moon. They even had the rovers. I was around during that time. I remember seeing the television programs and even the shows that have been shown since, the documentaries on all the different missions and the movies and the pictures of them in the lunar rover they would drive along as like a dune buggy. All that, I saw that. How could I have forgotten that all of this had happened just because she said that she really believed that no one had ever landed on the moon? Well, not too long ago, I was with my daughter, and I was saying, let me read something from Wikipedia. And so I said, I looked up the Apollo missions, and can you believe it? They actually had like 5 other landings on the moon, and we were in hysterics. It was so hilarious that I had totally forgotten that there were so many more missions. And I had even at a big event in Boulder, Colorado, it was called the Seminar of the Century, that was put on by T. Harv Eker. I was out there in Boulder, and one of the astronauts spoke, and I think it was Buzz Aldrin, or it could have been someone who actually walked on the moon. But there was someone who spoke and talked about his experience on the moon and stuff, and I was going, how could I have forgotten that there were all these other missions that happened? Well, there you go. It reminds me that, I know a lot, but it's okay to forget some of the most monumental events that have occurred in scientific history. And I give myself some slack about that. So you also, should you forget things of that nature, give yourself some slack and just have a great laugh about it. Talk to you later.